I suppose the first thing was that I hadn't actually read anything like that for television, ever.
Oh my God. Sorry, Professor. Cut!
I think we had a lot of fun. And it is possibly, for me, the best part of the whole thing.
A radically new drama has hit our screens. British TV has never dared to be so bold.
Bad Dodie.
Producer Tim Haines had the idea for Primeval over 10 years ago when he made the groundbreaking Walking with Dinosaurs.
Having introduced the animals to television in documentaries, I always thought, well, if we could bring these into drama, make these part of a story, make them perform a role, then there'll be lots of potential for them. So I was very excited about the idea of trying to move all this wonderful technology, this dramatic tool, into an ordinary TV drama.
I knew that if I could come up with a story that would match those special effects, we'd have something really unique. We didn't want spooky old churches or ghostly houses and things. We wanted something that felt really, really modern. The idea we had from the very beginning was that we wanted people to feel that, having watched this programme, they could go into their kitchen and find a dinosaur in their kitchen. You know, they actually would feel that close. Well, in a nutshell, a man called Professor Cutter, whose wife disappeared 8 years ago, discovers that not only that she might not be dead, but that she may have discovered the reason why certain creatures from the past are beginning to reappear in the present.
Hello, Nick. I see you got my message.
I think it is a classic love story in one way. It's about people who love each other and yet at the same time can't stand each other.
Wormholes, if you like. We call them anomalies.
Is it gone?
But little tiny rips in time have opened up in the worst possible places. And creatures from the past and the future have managed to break through and are on the rampage.
In the process of making this discovery, he gets together a loose kind of team of assistants and helpers, some of whom he wants, some of whom he doesn't quite want, but who get there anyway. And it's about a group of people who kind of find each other.
And a small team is trying to track down where these anomalies are opening and contain the creatures that are spilling out of them.
And every time there's an incident, they go along to try and tidy it up, cope with it, and learn from it. And that's the sort of starting point for each episode.
Primeval has pushed small screen boundaries with its spectacular special effects.
This is an extremely complicated action drama to start off with. Then you add in the creatures.
With a show this big, when you've got 6 hours at least in production, you can't film that in one go.
It's a complicated thing for the directors and everyone to keep in their heads.
So you always have to break it up into chunks, and you need to film in 2 blocks, as we call it. So Cilla Ware directed the first 3 episodes, and Jamie Payne did the second 3.
Nice.
So while, for instance, Cilla is now editing away her first 3 episodes, Jamie is only just filming his.
Cut there. OK. Fine. Welcome to Primeval.
It's hard work. 90% of the drama, despite having all these creatures in it, is about the convincing performance of the actors, the emotions that come across, the telling of the story. All these things have to happen on location. shooting a backplate, you're not just trying to get it so that it's okay for the animal. You've got to make sure your actors are running in the right direction. You've got to make sure your effects are working with that. So it becomes many, many layers. So when the camera turns off at the end, that's only halfway through.
Time running.
The trouble with going on location, the difficulties, the challenges of going on location are that you can't always control it.
In choosing a director, we knew we'd never find someone with a lot of CG experience. We needed people who had a really good, solid track record. You're always looking for good directors, regardless of whether it's effects or anything.
I kind of think that, I don't know why, because it's still there, so near them, that they'd still be watching it.
After a 9-week shoot, Scylla has another 9 weeks in the cutting room to add creatures.
Got company!
Jamie is shooting the most ambitious and complicated day in his schedule.
Right, Narinder needs to be further forward, please, sir.
This is an amazing show to direct, but the thing is, it's a very ambitious show, and it's not just normal live action or not just normal action, it's CGI as well. So I've got 2 hours to shoot a whole big action sequence and the glass house sequence, so it's very tight.
This is the pressure of filming. Whenever you try and film interactive stuff with CGI and special effects, it takes forever.
And action!
We can't come out of this without the sequence because we're building up to it, and this is the death of the first future predator. So if it feels rushed or cod in any way, it's just not going to work for the series, so we have to do it in 2 hours.
Something like the greenhouse sequence is a critical part of the story, and it's a big payoff for a sequence, and the audience would know if they didn't get their exciting action climax, well, it's not going to be a very exciting show to watch.
We've got company!
I'm quietly concerned that we haven't got the time that we need. Okay, what are the smallest amount of shots that we need to kind of get out of it, and that's usually the work. The wall of glass creates an echolocating shield between you and it.
Jamie is in full control, but unfortunately the schedule is very, very tight.
Filming, as anyone who's watched it knows, is like watching paint dry, and especially when you've got special effects. Every little special effect has to be set up, every shot. You just find it's like wading through treacle. Everything takes so long.
As Jamie realised he wouldn't have time for the whole scene, he decided to film with the high-speed camera, as it is the most expensive.
That is a wrap, thank you very much.
It's a juggling, balancing act, which I suppose any directing job is, but this one is quite extreme. And because it's such a fresh series, there aren't many like it. It's a new kind of juggling act that we're all coming to terms with. So today was frustrating. We did get some good stuff, but we didn't complete the day.
Although the remainder of his schedule remains extremely tight, Jamie has a plan on how to complete the greenhouse scene.
There are lots of cases in the fossil record and in evolution where inexplicable things happened. And if you invented the idea that, in fact, that's because occasionally animals swap time, that gives you endless story possibilities.
It's the Sarcopterygian. There's no trace of them in the fossil record for 70 million years, and then suddenly one of them just pops up in the middle of the Indian Ocean. Totally inexplicable in modern evolutionary terms. See, Darwin provides most of the answers. It's the pieces that don't fit that interest me.
Dinosaurs kind of fascinated me when I was 10. And when I read the script, it was one of those things that I thought I would really, really like to do this.
Well, when I got sent the script, I had kind of no idea what it was about. Excuse me.
And literally, it was just the pages were turning. I was like, my goodness. God. Then suddenly we're all in the forest and there's dinosaurs walking around.
Cut to their group reaction.
The creators of Primeval knew that getting the right cast was absolutely essential.
Casting is critical on this kind of show. The casting is like writing it all over again.
So what we'll do, guys...
It's really hard finding British leading men who can play heroes, I think. I mean, we all know there are many fantastic actors around, but we wanted somebody who was very good looking.
Unfortunately, I don't look like Harrison Ford.
Somebody who was very talented.
I'd never really played characters like that before.
He has this ability to hold the screen and a great charisma with a camera.
I didn't actually think that ITV would let me.
He also, very usefully for us, brings a kind of credibility that you can believe he's a scientist.
I've never been let on the telly at kind of 7 o'clock at night. You know, that's not really been things that I've done.
I believed him, and that was very, very important.
He can look rugged.
It's just like, I want to go and chase the dinosaurs, please.
A good-looking romantic lead, someone who you believe is an action hero.
Action hero with brains, well, it just means that you don't run into things very often.
You little...
I wanted him to be not very good with guns. I didn't want him to use guns. There's a part where Captain Ryan offers me a gun and I ask for a torch.
No, we need torches. The most powerful you can find.
These people were, to all intents and purposes, members of the public who are suddenly thrust into an extraordinary situation, which, to my way of thinking, is what heroes are.
Stephen is a very close friend, if not his best friend. Professor Cutter perhaps is the cerebral one of the partnership who decides what we're going to do, and then I do it.
Stephen, shoot it. Stephen, for God's sake, will you shoot it?
You let me think you were dead.
I am dead as the person you knew. My old life ended 8 years ago.
She's very independent, very strong, very single-minded, very passionate.
Hey!
She lives amongst animals in really wild country.
That's the first time that we actually have a conversation between Cutter and his wife. They meet, and they still argued.
The role of Abby is a big breakthrough for Hannah Spirit.
I was very excited when I got the script, but just never thought that it would happen. I just never thought that I'd get it.
I'm a lizard girl, Tim, you know that.
I always thought that it would just go to the bottom of my pile of things that I don't get.
I see you like dinosaurs, Ben.
She seemed to just have a nice little bit of punky attitude, and that's what we wanted. We wanted somebody, a bit of a feisty tom girl.
Is that perfume?
I can do the girl thing, you know.
In many ways, one could say we took a risk because she wasn't as experienced as acting. I mean, Hannah had come up in the world of music and singing, and she hadn't come up in the world of drama. And we were about to throw her into a really kind of big, heavy-duty, emotional set drama.
And I'll have coffee at your place later and stay for breakfast in the morning.
I mean, not that much experience, really. I mean, I'm just kind of bringing myself to the part, really. And maybe dancing in my past has helped me do the odd kick.
It's freezing.
We should huddle together for warmth. Or not.
What I did to prepare for this role was initially do some internet searches for the creatures that were mentioned in the script.
I can do the action stuff as well, you know. I'm not just a massive intellect.
I got told this boy was a genius, an academic.
Oh, actually, that's my dissertation.
I left school at 16. It was everything that I'm not. I'm not saying I'm not a genius, because in many ways I might be. I don't know yet. I've not found me niche.
It's a work in progress.
I was stepping into territory unknown.
With so many CGI creatures, the cast had to find a new style of acting.
It's quite hard, I suspect, for an actor to come into a project like this where they're acting against nothing.
As far as when you're acting with CGI, it really is as naked as all that. There's nothing clever about it than that.
As a group, as a unit, we had to imagine these things that we had no idea what they were gonna look like.
It is, you have to go back to kind of pretending that you're being attacked by aliens when you were 7 with your pals in the playground. It's that kind of acting. There's no room for any kind of rationale, or you can only use logic and practicality so far, because the most that you're actually going to get is a ball and a stick with a first AD going rawr. That's as good as it's going to get. And at first it seems so stupid and overreacting and a fear of being a terrible ham, and that we're all going to be looking at different things at different times.
Well, there's absolutely nothing in front of you.
I was looking over here, I think Andrew was looking over here.
I felt an idiot on the first week.
Be told that, and the big monster's just gone that way, and you're going to get heads going boomf, and then somebody else going boomf 2 minutes later.
You just have to rely on your own imagination. You've really got to put it there mentally in front of you.
The more used to you get, the more kind of it becomes every day.
I personally don't think twice about it. They go, oh yeah, there's a huge predator type creature over there. It moves at the speed of light. You're just like, oh, okay.
The role of Lester is played by Ben Miller.
James Lester, I'll be in charge of coordinating our response.
I get a very easy ride in this in terms of acting with the CGI creatures. I've only got the scene with Rex, which of course ends up with Rex defecating on my shoulder.
The first AD, Gareth, was very, very good. He would either put a traffic cone on his head and make noises that he believed the creature he was playing, and he got very involved.
And the really off-putting bit was then Gareth would sort of say, OK, I'm going up in the air, I'm flying overhead, I'm about to defecate, poo, 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 poo. And when you're sort of trying to kind of stay sort of in character and in the scene, and try and sort of take it seriously.
When we did Walking with Dinosaurs, there were a whole load of restrictions. In Primeval, the animals come up and stare into the camera so that you've got the whole thing right next to you. It's a much slicker process, allowing us to actually demand more from it. And that's the unfortunate thing for the effects people. As soon as they make their job easier by some advance, production people just ask for more.
There's a change in the requirements of the animation as we move from documentaries into semi-documentaries, which have a bit of drama, and into full drama. And so we found that the animators who'd become skillful at portraying really lifelike extinct creatures in a faux wildlife documentary then had to learn new skills when we needed to add character to the creatures.
To To get things right, the animators are involved from almost the start.
We initially work from the scripts and get a rough idea of what effects we think are going to be needed to be delivered for the show.
Director Silla Wurr's first character was Rex, the flying lizard.
We wanted Rex to have his own very specific character. We wanted him to be cheeky and naughty, but we wanted the cheekiness to sometimes be not sweet, but actually sometimes a bit naughty.
What we found with all the creatures, really, is there are certain mannerisms that they can do that will give clues to what their character is. And when an animator hits on that mannerism, then it's kind of bingo, that's it. With Rex, there was a lot of mammalian characteristics to Rex, even though he was a lizard. One of our animators has a cat, and she'd come in and get ideas from her cat and come in and say, hey, why don't I make Rex do something like this? And a lot of the time it really worked. Puppy dog elements were put into Rex, as well as a kind of quick bird-like movements of the head and little tilts of the head that made him look very cute.
We were worried about Rex because it had to match an animatronic lizard, and that's always difficult because animatronics are built of rubber with metal skeletons inside, and they tend to look very different from our creatures.
Animatronics are mechanical creatures used when the interaction with the actor is extremely close.
This is Rex. He's our animatronic lizard. He's very lovable, very cuddly. Chris, do you want to give me a hand? I'll Chris did all the mechanisms for Rex, and he's Abby's favourite friend, and all the cast and crew are really quite fond of him now.
Most of the shots he's being carried around, so as long as the back end was animated and the front was animated, it was all moving realistically and believably. So it's just a 2-week mechanising job. So this is what we can get in 2 weeks.
But in order for Rex to really come alive, he needed his very own voice.
Rex was most probably one of the hardest creatures to find a voice for, because we'd always decided that rather than being a lizard, which has no real sounds, we wanted Rex to have his own very specific character.
Rex was a tricky one. Everyone on the production had an idea about how he should sound. He's the dinosaur that everyone wants to have at home with them. So to base him entirely in reptilian sounds wouldn't have given him the cute factor.
Rex, come here. Stop messing around.
The process of finding his voice started initially by looking for an animal that actually had character within his own right, and our editor, Adam, had discovered the voice of a raccoon.
I then experimented with various frog noises to give it a sense of bark, a sharpness to it, and cutting into the raccoon noise, which worked with the frame store's images of a yapping kind of cheeky chap. It's a radically different job to anything I've worked on in the past. It's the first time that I've been asked to create things that I have no idea what they're actually going to sound like. I'm very happy with the sound of the Gorg, the combination of metal, human voice and animal, working to create a very creepy roar that just cuts through. It brings associations of sounds we know, sounds that terrify us.
Back on location, Jamie manages to get ahead of his schedule, but then nature intervenes.
Today's a big day. You know, we're shooting the end of the series, and we can't shoot, so we can't beat this. Whoa. See, that's what happens when you talk about messing up the past. Maybe we're doing that. Yeah. Maybe. Yeah.
Still living the dream, living. Ready?
The next day brings clear blue skies, but the crucial greenhouse scene is still at the back of Jamie's mind.
Okay, good. We'll just do one more of those, please, guys. Carl, you all right? We'll do one more on this side and then we'll change lenses.
It's been going fan-dabby-dozy, almost. You know, it's up and down, like any job.
Great. We need to pick up the whole scene from the greenhouse day, apart from one shot. You know, we all know you've got to get the coverage to make the kind of excitement of a sequence, but to balance it off with the demands of the kind of CGI, that just, you know, that day was a great lesson.
Me and my friend Duncan, in the script, we adopt this dodo, we find it by chance, and we decide to take it under our wing because we're quite into conspiracies and we think that they're kind of cloning them or breeding them.
Oh my God, they've turned Connor into a turkey.
So we take this one and we take it back to our flat, and we're kind of quite matey with it, we like it, it's quite sweet, and then it turns a bit...
Easy.
And then it turns a bit and bites me. Which is why I turn a bit and bite people, because it's the parasite.
I think one of the things we're keen to get in this series is variety. It's not always a huge pair of teeth coming through and eating people. And so to have suddenly a flock of dodos is a lovely thing for a zoologist. They are also an icon of extinction. And there's this lovely moment where Cutter is just overjoyed to see a live dodo again.
Round them up, everybody, don't let them go!
I don't know why, that when they said, OK, how does a dodo move? And I tried to show how a dodo moved. For a start, it looked like a demented chicken high on I don't know what. It changes its direction, it bumps into things, it goes in and out of cupboards. Its feet, you know, would kind of cross over, which is a very difficult thing to animate. So the leg movement and how that moves in the body was very difficult. God knows the level of work that goes on back at Framestore to make that happen.
The main thing that we had to do with our creatures was, instead of them being sort of wild animals that are out grazing or, you know, and just being animals, is we wanted to give this feeling that they were more intelligent than that.
Dodos. Oh, they're so cute.
And that we could see them thinking on the screen, and we could see them deciding to attack someone or go for something.
What's that? Yeah. Halfway through her edit, director Silla Ware is having a meeting about a difficult animation sequence.
Where you know, where you really felt frustration-y thing, that you really sensed his physical struggle, really, and that'll come up in here.
These shots are basically kind of, they're not completely finished animation. It's a kind of work in progress. We felt that Adam should have them as quick as possible, and then you can edit the sequence. I mean, obviously his flippers are in the wrong place at the moment as well.
We needed to give the muscle more personality, and we wanted him to most probably be more angry. So we sent Jimmy back to create more of a viciousness.
The way Silla would communicate how she would like her creatures to be, Silla would act out these things to us, and that was very much her style of directing.
I would actually start attacking Jimmy and going for him and saying, I want the actors to feel like that and I want the audience to feel like that. And poor old Jimmy would have to sit there and act going, I want him to go, ah! So Jimmy's now kind of hopefully going to come back, and it's going to hopefully have a creature that is alive and vicious and will excite us and excite the audience.
It wants to eat them, but it just can't get there because it can't get its flippers up over the side, so it's slipping around trying to snap at them. The animation on it was very difficult, but it has been very successful.
We've had a little problem this morning in the fact that the camera truck didn't turn up. The truck broke down on the A40, and because it broke down completely, we couldn't even get access to open the door. it just meant it was like the camera equipment were in a safe on the M40. There's nothing we could do to kind of get in it. That's the thing, you know, there's so many things that we can't control, and a broken down truck is one of them.
This is the blue version of the monster. This is what's actually going to go through the sugar glass windscreen. Have to worry about a nice gloss finish, as long as it's blue.
Basically, blue is a colour that doesn't appear in natural flesh tones. The computer picks and can just cut it out and cut the person out and stick them on top.
Okay, a little rehearsal.
Jamie saves time by rehearsing the scene where Connor is being attacked by a new species, the future predator.
Our logic was, if anomaly is going to the past, why shouldn't they come from the future too? So we created this character, this predator, or what we call the future predator.
The starting point for Future Predator was, if mankind dies out, what creatures will start to thrive?
It's like a cross between a bat and a rat.
It's a hugely evolved creature, which we suggest in the show might even be the creature that takes over from humanity as the dominant species on Earth.
If you said man died out, what takes over? Could probably be mammals, especially if the climate stays the same. And if it's mammals, it would likely be a rat or a bat.
I think it's an incredibly difficult thing to do when somebody says, OK, invent a creature from the future, would you please?
The brief was, it ran on 4 limbs, but it had the ability to stop and rear up and free up its front limbs, a bit like a gorilla, basically. It had to be unusual and quite sinister without looking too fantasy, without completely science fiction, otherworldly look. You recognise what something's thinking through their eyes usually, and when there's no eyes to look at, you don't know what it's thinking, which makes it all the more strange. These 2 images on the right were the initial design. Because the verbal brief was so specific, we almost hit the nail on the head straight away in that the general body form was right. But what Tim wasn't quite happy with is the head. So it went from a quite classic dinosaur head to a really quite unusual, slightly human, slightly skull-like, and therefore quite scary, more unusual looking head.
I kind of saw it on the page when Jamie Payne, the director, showed and said, this is what we've come up with, and I kind of went, oh, goodness, you know, because it looks terrific, and it looks, you know, it's everything I kind of hoped it would be, because it looks like it could actually be a proper animal.
What can I say? It just broke down. This is occupational hazard. It hasn't happened to me in 15 years of working in the film industry.
And action. Connor gets into the car. Picks up the oscilloscope. Nothing on it. It starts to move. He looks around. It can't see anything. He can't see anything. He hears something on the roof of the car, looks up, closes the door quietly. The audience sees the head of the future predator come behind him, looking down the back window screen, and then disappear. We then pull through the window to show the audience car with no creature, so the audience don't know where it's coming from, he doesn't know where it's coming from. And at that moment, it smashes through the screen. The future predator pushes through, and it's so big that it can't get beyond the seats, and Connor's in the back seat. He gets out the back door. It's flailing around inside the car, so there's going to be a lot of shots to make the sequence work. But from a directing point of view, it's very exciting to be given the opportunity of saying things like, you know, I would never sit on a normal show and go, OK, we can pull out, go through the glass, come out, and then the creature is gone, and then it appears. And that's one of the most exciting things about Primeval.
Action. No picture.
391, take one.
And action!
Oh, I hit the camera guy.
Connor's wardrobe is one of the most interesting things about him, I think. Stephen Hart is the big macho one. He feels like he has to compete a bit, so he wears his bulky clothes, but now I'm suffering because it's red hot and it's kind of hard working when it's so hot.
Let's shoot it.
While Jamie is shooting, the creation of the future predator continues. The next stage is to make a clay model.
And Darren produced a concept drawing, which I've got here, which was the basis on which we proceeded, really. So this is what we produce. Often parts are cut off, legs and arms are taken away to make the laser scanner able to get into all the folds and creases and what have you. And the jaws drop away as well. So that they can be scanned, the mouth interior can be scanned as well. So, yeah, it is nice that those traditional techniques of sculpting and moulding and casting to produce real 3D models which we hand over, it's really nice that this still exists, and maybe there'll come a time where the technology, it's not required, but at the moment it's still the very traditional techniques that are being employed, really.
The sculpture is then taken into our scanning department in the basement and scanned at very high resolution. I think the highest resolution anyone can scan.
When I saw the creature, I thought, fantastic. This is a really beautiful model for us to scan because it's reasonable size, it's a good texture. White things are quite easy to scan as opposed to dark objects. Coming out of here is a laser stripe, and we just slowly swipe it across the object like so, and that'll pick up all the detail, hopefully.
Using the flying cup. Just stand clear, please. Please. Thank you. And action.
What happens if it closes when you're on the other side?
Then we just wait until it reopens.
We should get going. Don't go. Stay. I've got a really bad feeling about this.
Sorry.
Cut that.
Well, you see, you realise now why in the old-fashioned days they filmed everything in studios. Because it's so much easier. We've had something, I think, trying to spray crops flying over. We have lorries that come out of the blue. I mean, wherever you go in this country, somebody wants to ruin your filming day.
And action.
I thought it would be really good fun if we could do something that was quite small but quite powerful in its effect. So when Cutter comes back from the past for the final time, he finds something very dramatic has happened.
What happened? Did you find the anomaly?
He comes back to ask where she is, and no one knows who he's talking about.
Where's Claudia Brown? I don't know anyone of that name.
At this stage, we don't know why she's disappeared or what happened, but it seems clear that something very important has changed in humanity, and Claudia was never even born.
Look, where is she? Cutter, we don't know her.
No one knows her.
Boy, something's wrong.
He has jeopardised her existence by his actions.
Something's changed. We've done something.
So just when he was falling in love, he loses her.
Oh, my God.
Greenhouse sequence that we haven't got room for. They use a number of different programs to do this, but basically it's all in the eye.
Travelling through time was a big CGI challenge.
The original concept of the anomaly was simply something whereby creatures came from the past into the present. And we never had a strong visual design in mind. When I described it in the script, I described it as shimmering in the air. But what Tim and the designers came up with was something I think really rather mystical and rather beautiful. It's kind of almost like a decoration.
It doesn't appear with a crackle of lightning, and therefore everyone in the entire vicinity goes, what the hell's that?
The other world is fragmented. The doorway to it is fragmented over to a three-dimensional space that is the anomaly, and as you step through it, you start off with small shards of the other world until eventually you come to large, jagged fragments, and then finally you're through into the other world.
Framestore technicians being able to invent a pipeline that takes what usually costs the film industry millions and millions and put it on the small screen for much, much less.
They are used to huge movie budgets like Harry Potter, say, or Troy, but then they may only get a very small piece of that pie.
Sometimes an animator on a feature film might spend an entire year working on 2 or 3 shots. We couldn't afford that.
The animators have to make radical changes to their approach in order to speed up the process.
To allow the animators to work quickly, we're using a very simplified version of the model, but we're asking the director to use his or her imagination and imagine what the animation will be like when it's on the finished model.
We put a bit more movement into it. We try to suggest head movements, mouth movements, things that would give more of a clue to what would be happening, so that right up front the director could look at it and then decide that's the way they want it to go or not.
The animation process works through a number of loops until the directors and the animators are happy, or, as more common the case, when they give up fighting each other, and we have an animation that we all agree is the right one.
After the animation is approved, the final stage is compositing.
Compositing means the combination of the computer-generated images on the one hand and the live-action images of the actors and the backgrounds on the other. And it takes up maybe half the time and half the budget. The artists who do this, the compositors as we call them, really have to know what they're doing. They use a number of different programs to do this, but basically it's all in the eye.
Each show is about 10 weeks, and that's from the very, very first thing being scanned to the last shot being delivered. Quite a long process, really, but done in a very, very compressed time.
It's the last week of the shoot, and the ever-tight schedule will not allow Jamie to complete the greenhouse scene. However, he's come up with a plan.
We've got a lunchtime meeting today because the greenhouse sequence that we didn't get to do on that fateful day, we haven't got room for it in our schedule for me to direct it. So it's not ideal for any director, but a second unit led by Cameron are going to direct that scene. So in my mind, this sequence needs to be handheld, which brings up a little bit of a... I've strictly storyboarded it, so the meeting is about me saying what I'd love to achieve within that scene and everybody being on the same page. He's got the baby in his hand. Now, the baby is a prosthetic, so we've got to be careful that we don't frame the baby in too much.
Strictly guided by Jamie, the greenhouse scene is finally going to be completed.
Here we go now.
Yeah.
And roll, please.
And that is a wrap, thank you very much.
Maybe the next series they might find me some more clothes to wear, I don't know.
I think that the characters of Lester and Helen are incredibly similar.
Lester and Helen could be an interesting, disturbing union.
After applauding that one, you can cut for a second.
Cast and crew have been fantastic, and I think everyone's kind of very excited about it.
I'm all oh my godded out, actually. You know, if I have to go one more time, you know, my head's gonna just fall off.